Hey, what's up, everybody? This is your boy Kenny, and this is the Haves and the Have-Nots Season 5, Episode 20, and the name of this episode is The Enemy Called Trust. Yo, this episode was fire, y'all. I was so here for everything tonight. This was a really good episode, so let me get started. The episode opens up where it left off. Veronica and Catherine have set fire to the Cryer mansion. We see that Jim and David show up. You know, David immediately is like, "What the hell are you doing, Catherine? Why are you setting down why are you burning up the house?" Catherine looked at him and was like, "I was hoping that you were in there." I was like, Catherine already starting. And then Veronica then goes in like, "Well, we're setting fire to the house because Jennifer Sallison's dead body, the body that you were supposed to get rid of, end up turning up in front of a news station. Now it's headlining news everywhere, and now the DA is now investigating the case. So we got to get rid of the evidence. You know about evidence, don't you, Jim? You know, carpet fibers, blood spatter, and David and Jim was like, "What are you talking about? I had the whole place cleaned." He's like, "Yeah," and Veronica's like, "Yeah, you did that, but obviously I can't rely on that because it was your responsibility to get rid of the body, and now the body has turned back up, and then not only that, it has Cryer victim on it. So now." So now, you have really caused a problem. And then Jim is turning to David, like, "David, handle your wife." Like David. He's like, "Don't even. Like, I don't got nothing to say to her." And she's like, "Oh," and Veronica's like, "Oh, you don't?" And he's like, "No. I can't wait till I divorce your ass." And she's like, "Oh, look at you getting all bold. It's kind of hot, not as hot as Benjamin Young, but it's good though. You sure you got everything handled, huh? You don't think I don't have nothing to pull out against you?" And David at this point is like, I don't care, whatever. So then we see that afterwards, Catherine just walks away, and he's like, "Catherine, you need to stay here so we can figure out what we're gonna do after this." And David ends up calling the fire department. So that's what happens in that scene. Next, we see there's a crew of cops that are leaving Candace's room 3031. Now we know her room number. It's a group of cops leaving 3031, and we see that that Landon, along with Charles and pretty much the Secret Service, is now walking back, and we can see that Charles is mad. And they pretty much go into Charles's room, and he pretty much calls Landon, "Landon, I need you for a moment." So Landon and him go into his room alone. He pours him a drink, and you can see Charles is pissed off, and Landon is still trying to do his job or whatever. But then he cuts Landon off. He was like, "You like your job?" And he was like, "Yeah." He's like, "So, tell me this. Why did you call the police? I told you to help her, and yet you disobeyed me." He's like, he's like, "Yeah, I know what you did. I know you called the police on her, but why? Why did you do it?" And he's like, and he's saying that, "Look, I want her. I told you to clean her up. So what's the problem?" And Landon's like, "Well, to be honest, I don't know why." He's like, "You don't know why what?" He's like, "Why is she so special?" And then that daggone Charles was like, "Well, I wouldn't expect you to understand why she's special, because after all, you're not into women, are you?" And he's like, "No." He's like, "Of course you're not. So again, do what I say and clean her up." And he's like, "But I don't understand. But then, like, Landon still talking his mess. I'm like, you're gonna end up dead, buried, and stinking like old girl Maggie Day if you don't stop talking crap. But then he's still like, well, I think it's ludicrous. I think it's very asinine thing. I mean, you're about to become the president of the United States, and you're messing around with this low-level criminal. And he's like, how do you know I wasn't a low-level criminal? And he's like, I refuse to believe that. And he said, well, I was. Me and her are not so different. So we're starting to see more and more. Charles really got feelings for Candace. He's really feeling her. Now, he says, now look, I'm going to tell your ass one more time. Clean her up. And that's going to be the end of it. And like, all of a sudden, Landon's like, but Charles, and then all of a sudden Charles kind of gave him that look like, I will whoop your ass. Like, he kind of gave that look like, and he's like, okay, I'll do it. So then he says, send in Vincent. So he sends in Vincent and tells Vincent, to be on the lookout for Candace and let him know when she, gets back. And so, because you see, like, Vincent is like his head, guy in the Secret Service. So that's like his right-hand man. But I'm like, Landon, you just fishing for some trouble. Next we see Candace goes to the fountain drop, and that scene really tore me up because she was so emotionally broken, and sadness was just overcoming her, because it really took me back to that moment where Ward came up in there and shot up that whole entire room, and little Quincy ended up getting killed. So it definitely took me back to that moment, and man, Candace was going through it. And then she pretty much asked, like, where are you guys, huh? Next, after that, we get a scene at the police station. George and the detective, the one that arrested Benny, they're going over to talk to Wyatt Cryer. And then we see Justin, a.k.a. Glenn Close, a Fatal Attraction messy behind, come up like, oh, come on, man, let me ride with you guys, let me ride with you. And the detective's like, now this is above your pay grade, this is not a part of your jurisdiction, you need to chill. He's like, come on, how am I going to move up if I don't get around you guys, if I'm not, if I'm not riding beside you guys, seeing what you guys do. So the detective's like, all right, little boy, you can come with us. So I'm like, Justin, you being real messy. You just want to come because, it's Wyatt involved. And you see Wyatt as a threat because, he's close to Jeffrey. So anybody that's close to Jeffrey is a threat. And then we see when he walks off, the other cop that he works with is looking on. So I'm thinking, that cop definitely knows about Justin's teeth. Question is, how much does he know? But I think, like, in time we might find that out. But that cop was looking like, yo, something up. Next we see that Landon, after Landon gets chewed out by Charles, we see him go downstairs and he runs into Jeffrey. And he's like, yo, get away from me. And he's like, look. And then, like, Jeffrey's like, look, just look, that wasn't my plan or whatever. And he's like, look, who was he? And he's like, look, he's just a plan. And he's like, okay, then why is he in your room? Like, did you know he was going to be there? And Jeffrey was like, no. So he's like, so you mean to tell me this guy is stalking you? And he's like, oh no, he's not stalking me. I'm like, Jeffrey, you are really starting to get on my nerves with your dumbness. This dude is stalking, and it's getting to the point where he is completely crossed the line, but in your mind you think you got it handled. Like, boy is becoming more and more crazier and more insane as this whole situation goes along, because he has become completely obsessed with you, and he's not going to stop at nothing to get at you. So, pretty much Landon's like, look, I don't know what it is, but, here it is. He's supposed to be straight, but he's into you. He's like, and then Jeffrey's like, yeah, pretty much is what it is. He's really into me. but it's like he just won't take no for an answer, so he just pops up. And he said that, look, this is dangerous. And then Jeffrey's like, he don't get, like, why this is dangerous. I'm like, look, the guy is supposed to be straight, but yet he's making you the object of his desire. Like, what makes you think this is going to be an okay situation? And then, like, Jeffrey's like, look, I'm not really trying to get into this. I just want to get in my room and lay down. He's like, what, you're not afraid that he's gonna be back up in there? And Jeffrey's like, oh, I know he's not up in there. I mean, after all, my mother got to him. And he's like, and then all of a sudden Landon started talking his crap. Oh, great. Another person who needs a restraining order. I mean, because you need to get one on Justin, but you definitely need to get one against your mother. And then, because you know how she is. She always is putting herself in a situation she ain't got no business putting herself into. And then, lo and behold, Veronica walks up. And then all of a sudden, she just immediately starts off on Jeffrey. I'm getting sick of you hanging out with these girls. And then they start talking, and they go back and forth, and she's like, I need you to go home. And he's like, I'm not going back home. And she's like, oh, yes, you are. You're going home. And then she looks to Landon and is like, little girl, don't you need to fix up your lipstick? And he's like, well, it's better than your foundation. I was like, okay. All right, Landon, that was a good one. I like that. And she was like, girl, please. So Landon walks off, and she's like, look, I've worked too hard on this whole thing. I need you to get back home to be there with Melissa. And he's like, look, I'm not coming back home. And as a matter of fact, don't you think you've done enough? And she's like, look, I meet with the judge tomorrow, about, the body. I mean, after all, you forget that body's evidence. So what you gonna do? Talking about Quincy. So I'm like, so he's like, this is what you're gonna do, Jeffrey. You're gonna take your butt home, and you're gonna bring in Melissa, and you're gonna make sure she's good, And she's like, and he's like, you don't get it, do you, Mom? Like, this girl tried to kill herself. She is unhappy. She's like, no, she's not. She's just looking for attention, And she's like, no, she's not. This girl is unhappy. She needs help. She's like, no, she doesn't. She's fine. She's just looking for attention, and if anything, she needs to bring her crazy butt home, putting blood on my good sheets. And I was like, Veronica, you are horrible, and like, Jeffrey's like, is that all you care about? And she's like, yeah, that's all I care about. But what this is that I'm not going to lose my grandchild. This grandchild is going to happen. You're going to see that it's going to happen, and she's gonna stay in line, and I'm gonna make sure she does. So yeah, make your way back home. And then next thing you know, we see Candace walks by, and then she immediately starts again. Veronica, oh, I knew I smelled something. And then he was like, I think she knows. And he's like, and then Veronica's like, she knows what? She knows that her son is dead. And she's like, oh, I'm sorry to hear about that. And he's like, really, Mom? And she's like, oh, and another thing, stay away from these boys. So Jeffrey goes to Candace and asks, is she okay? Candace doesn't say anything. She goes right into the elevator and shuts the door. It's like she's completely checked out. She ain't got nothing to say. Next, we see Wyatt over at Wyatt's place. Him and Anna in their apartment. They get a knock on the door, and it's George. George comes in there with Detective Hines and also Glenn Close, a.k.a. Justin. And immediately, Wyatt remembered him. And he just giving him that look like, why are you even here? And he's just standing there like everything's all good. So he was like, look, we're here to talk about Jennifer Salison, you know, and like, you know, and he's like, you know, yeah, like what happened? He's like, oh, she was murdered. He's like, really? She was murdered? And he's like, yeah, I told you that. Like, no, you told me she's dead. I thought she maybe had a heart attack or something. You know, he's like, no, she was murdered. And she's like, yeah. So won't you tell me a little bit about her? And he's like, look, as far as I can tell you, we had an immunity deal for me to give up information about, you know, about my family, you know, and he's like, yeah, and like George's like, yeah, we're aware of the fact you had an immunity deal. And he's like, so you're gonna honor it? And George says, yeah, we'll still honor it. He's like, yeah, and y'all's gonna cover Jeffrey too. And then all of a sudden we see Justin. I'm like, really, Justin? Just so up in your feelings about Jeffrey. So pretty much, you know, so Wyatt's like, so you mean to tell me that Jennifer Salison was murdered? Yeah, and he said she was shot 8 times at point blank range, and we found her body, and on the body it said choir victim. So I want to ask you something. What was her relationship with your parents? You know, what did you know about her? And he says, well, I know as far as my parents, they hated her. You know, and he was like, oh, really? Why is that? He's like, well, they hated her because, you know, she helped me get my inheritance and they wanted to maintain control over me, but she helped, you know, liberate me by giving me my inheritance. And she says that, and he's like, so how much was the inheritance? And he said $12 million. I'm like, you are telling too much, Wyatt, you idiot. You are telling too much information and you don't have a lawyer there. Like, you should not even be talking to a DA without a lawyer. But Wyatt is pretty much, you know, a junkie, so he don't know no better. So pretty much he asks, like, well, $12 million is a lot of money. He's like, really, ain't it? It ain't a lot of money compared to what my family got. And he's like, oh, so won't you tell me how much your family's worth? He says, my mom is worth $250 million. And I'm like, damn. And he says, my father is not worth that much without her. And then, pretty much he was like, so he's like, so won't you tell me something about your parents? He's like, what do you want to know? He's like, first of all, you know, they're not good people. You know, they've messed up. He's like, they've done a lot of mess throughout the years, so they're not good people or whatever. And he was like, wow. So, you know, so you're willing to tell me everything you want to? So you willing to tell me everything about your parents? He's like, yeah. Where do you want me to start? I'll let you know everything about them. You know, they need to be taken down. And he's like, oh, okay. So go ahead. Then he looks over at Justin, aka Glenn Close, and he's like, I want him to leave. And he's like, don't look at me like that. And he's like, well, why do you want? And then Justin's like, well, why do you want me to leave, sir? He's like, you know why I want you to leave. I don't like people who hurt my friends. And then George was like, you know what, Justin, could you please step out? So Justin leaves, and he's like, okay, tell me everything about your parents. And then all of a sudden, we see Anna got that look. So I'm thinking Anna might actually call Oscar now, because now he put himself in a lake of fire. So that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Then we get a scene with Candace. Candace gets off the elevator and she bangs on the door for Charles, and she's like, Vincent is blocking the door, and she's like, don't touch me, Charles. Charles answers the door and she says, look, I need my phones, please give me my phones. You know, she gets the phones, and she's like, Charles is like, look, I'm really sorry about this. And she's like, did you do this? And he's like, no, I would never do anything like this. He was caught in the crossfire. So pretty much after that, she just walks off and goes in her room, and we see that he gets upset because she won't talk to him. So I'm like, Charles is falling for her. Yeah, she done put it on Charles. Charles won her. So then we pretty much see that the one person she ends up calling Benny. She leaves a message to Benny. Then she calls Erica and she says, Erica, I need you to come meet me in my room, room 3031. This messy bitch calls War and lets her know, oh yeah, she at room 3031. And he's like, okay, I'm on my way. Keep her there. She's like, okay, I'll keep her there. Then she calls her mother. Hannah picks up the phone and Hannah immediately, what do you want? She's like, is it true? And Hannah says yes. And she's like, what happened? It's like, Candace comes. She's like, tell me what happened. And she says, War came into the room looking for you. You know, he got into it with, Benny and Mitch. And then him and his boys just opened up guns and they just shot up the whole entire place. And little Quincy got shot up in the crossfire. And he's like, so where was he? And he was like, he was in the bathroom. And she's like, so did you? So she's like, so he's like, why didn't you protect him? And she's like, yeah. She's like, what are you talking about? I did protect him. I literally laid on top of that boy. And then she was like, so why didn't you get shot? And Hannah was like, I don't know. So he's like, you didn't protect my son. Like, you were supposed to protect him. You should be the one that should be dead. And I was like, damn, Candace, that is so fucking cold. And then we actually see that she ends up talking to Mitch. And he's like, yeah, I know about what happened. I'm sorry, baby. And he's like, and pretty much she asks, are you sure it was him? And he's like, yeah, I was right there. It was War. And he said, just like that, he shot the place up. And she's like, I want War dead. And she says, what's the plan? She said, get him over to my grandmother's restaurant. So she's like, okay, I'll do that. He calls his brother Tony, and he's like, tell Grandma I'm coming and I'm bringing War with me. He's like, oh, really? And then Tony's like, you finally coming into the family business. He's like, look, whatever, Tony. Just let her know I'm on my way. He's like, okay, I got you. So next we see Candace invites Erica. Erica wearing her red dress. And she's like, and she pretty much sits Erica down, and Candace asks the question, are you with me? And then she's like, yeah, Candace, I'm with you. And she's like, why did your dress smell like War? How did you get that fragrance? She's like, well, I don't know. Like, I'm not with War. You should not, like, well, no one has that scent but War. So the fact that scent was on you, that's pretty much putting me on the fence that, yeah, something's involved. You involved with him in some fashion. So I'm going to ask you again, are you with me? And she's like, yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. And she's like, well, I'm going to let you know something. War killed my son. And then she starts with that fake crap. And I'm like, yo, Erica, cut Erica's head off, because she really just made me sick in this episode. Because then she's like, what, Candace? Oh, I'm so sorry. Fake as hell. So then, all of a sudden, she calls up. So therefore, she's like, okay. Candace picks up the phone and makes a call. She ends up calling War. And she's like, he's like, Candy Kane, I've been looking for you. She's like, yeah, I know. Yeah. She's like, you've been lying to me, right? She's like, yeah, I know. So is it true you had 7.4 mil? And she's like, yeah. And she's like, and you lied to me about it. She's like, yeah, I did. And she's like, and then all of a sudden she's like, you gotta die, right? She's like, yeah, okay, War. And she's like, so he said, so yeah, where you are, stay where you at. She's like, oh, I'm moving. And she's like, oh, you are? He's like, oh yeah, I'm not staying here, but I'll let you know where I am. I'm at 3031 at the Artesian Hotel. You can just come through, but I won't be here when you get here. And he was like, oh, okay. She's like, you shot my son. And he's like, look, that was an accident. So then, all of a sudden, after she hangs up the phone, Erica is shook. She's like, oh my God, I can't believe you called him. I'm like, see, Candace has been on her butt the whole time, and I was so here for it. So she was like, give me your phone. Give me your phone now. Then all of a sudden, her phone rings, and it's an unknown number. And she's like, who is this? And Erica's like, I don't know who it is. I don't know. She's like, answer it. And answer it on speakerphone. So she answers it, and you see Erica is shook. But it so happens the person who was on the phone was David. And he's like, look, sorry, something came up. I can't meet with you tonight. And she's like, I can't make it tonight. And she's like, I can't make it tonight. She's like, well, that's okay because I'm dealing with an issue with a friend, And then she plays this BS that, this friend who obviously has trust issues and doesn't trust in me, and that she's about to screw up the only one good thing in her life, And I'm like, oh, you really playing with fire, ain't you, Erica? She already pissed off, and she already on to you, and you so damn naive, you don't even realize it. So they hang up the phone, and then Candace is like, let's go. And she's like, and Erica's like, well, where are we going? She's like, we're going to dinner. So we see that they arrive at Malone Restaurant. The perfect place to dine. Top of the line. So they pretty much are waiting to be sat. Erica says she's going to go freshen up in the bathroom. We see that Mitch comes to Hannah, and she's like, Mitch comes to Candace, and he tells Candace, look, stay low. We got this taken care of. So she said that, are you sure he's going to be here? And she's like, oh yeah, she's probably in the bathroom calling him right now. And he's like, see, I knew you couldn't trust that bitch. And I was like, yeah. So as we all were suspecting, Hannah knew that Erica was on some foul crap the entire time. So they pretty much sit down or whatever, and pretty much before that, she pretty much tells Mitch, kill that asshole. And he's like, I got you, baby. And then we see that Benny gets free from jail. He calls Hannah to come pick him up. And then we see that Charles is still on his campaign trail. He's about to do a speech. And in the speech, he actually asks for a moment of silence for little Quincy. We see that Hannah's watching Charles' speech on TV. And then we see that, Erica and Candace are seated, at the table. Then we see War coming in. War pretty much sits down, and we see that War and Candace are just staring each other down. Like it's just a straight up square up. Like she is kind of got that look like, yeah, your days are over. And while that's going on, we're seeing Charles is doing this speech. Next thing you know, we see War's goons come into the place. Next thing you know, we see that all of a sudden we see Tony comes out blasting, shoots War up, and then it's like a crazy shootout up in Mama Rose's restaurant, and they take out War, and they take out his entire team. So War has been taken out, and pretty much that's where it ended. And then we see Erica hiding, under the table. I'm like, oh, they about to mess you up, Erica, because now you ain't got War, and you ain't got his protection no more. You on your own, boo-boo. So I'm like, oh, it's about to get real. It's really about to get real. So I was like, yes! Finally, they got rid of War, because at the end of the day, I wanted revenge for little Quincy, and finally, we got it. So I'm like, yes, I was so happy for this. So that's what I have, y'all. If I missed anything, put it down in the comments. I'd love to talk to you about it. But yeah, this was a great episode. Tyler Perry, you did your thing on this one. I was so here for it. But that's what I have, y'all. So subscribe to my channel. Click that bell so you can get notifications every time I drop a video. Like this video, comment on this video, and share this video. And I will be back with the next episode of the Haves and the Have-Nots. So until then, everybody, take care.